We're here to celebrate a wonderful book. You're going to hear a lot more about that, but also the conversations it begins, which is Sandi and Alessandro's extraordinary skill. So thank you for bringing it here. I'm happy we could host it. Living in more than one place at the same time. And I somehow thought that kind of quantum state, definitely applies to more than just the people that are their focus in their work, the people in camps, the people in Palestine, the people in those situations, but perhaps it's a condition that we can all begin to identify with.
It's interesting within an institution like the Royal Institute of Art. We kept the old academy model. It's on the surface a very free institution. Everyone, all the professors could form their own education. The students have a very open curriculum. But of course there are structure. Of course there are power relations and power structure at play within this institution. How do we think about changing educational institutions that have this free and open structure? And how free is it, really?
Basically, it's like three things happening at the same time. It's like a catalogue of an exhibition that Alessandro, Petti and Sandi Hilal organized at Abbemuseum last November in Eindhoven. And it's also an archive where you can find around 14-15 years of practice in the realms of art and architecture and connected to the social and political implications of that practice. And also is a dictionary. It's a form of addressing certain topics in a critical way. And some of those topics are hospitality, borders, the idea of decolonization, etc., etc. And we will hopefully discuss this in the event today.
Temporariness is obviously, when we thought about it also as an architectural condition. And in that sense, if you would think, what does it mean to live temporary in a place? And how this is, for example, reflected on heritage. What kind of history you might live in a place that is not considering belonging. Do I belong? Can I claim history even if I would belong temporary each time in one place, or heritage only belong to permanency? Can I claim public space even if I live temporary today and now in Sweden, and ask that I can shape and rethink and actually understand the Swedish public today even if I am not committed to live to Sweden my entire life? Is it possible to understand actually in which way temporariness can come also with rights, with rights to the public, with rights to heritage, with rights to belonging, and not only asking people or thinking ourselves of illusion that one day we would actually belong to that place. How can we understand actually the agency of being in a place and demanding to be active and social members immediately, and not postponing it for a messianic moment that it would come?
Writing is actually very painful, I have to say, because means that you start to reflect and take distance from the very fact that you are inhabiting that project. So I always have this sort of tension, because in the moment I have the desire to take a distance and think more what this specific project means in the larger context, I also start to understand that I'm detaching from it. You cannot understand the refugee camp if you continue to think about public and private spaces. You enter in the camp and then you look for public and private spaces. So you look at the homes and say, okay, that is a private space. Wait a second. Homes, since they are in a space that is carved out from state sovereignty, the people that build their homes, they cannot own their homes. They legally cannot say, this is my home. Nevertheless, they build these homes and they create structure. And then you walk in the street and the street say, that is a public space. No, because there is no municipality. So who is taking care of the spaces? So all these different categories, that you basically understand how a city would work, between private and public, actually are not operational. It doesn't make any sense.
The way you have been talking about camp is building the communal. It's not the common, the Marxist common, it's not the common good of the liberal. The communal is something else. It's neither nor. It's not liberal, it's not Marxist, it's something else. And that is very crucial. And I won't say that this is decolonial, but this is the kind of thing that decolonial thinking and decolonial praxis are doing, are trying to build. The camp began to question them as architects. So they began to question architecture because of the learning of the camp. So that shifting the geography of reasoning is fundamental for many things, decoloniality for sure, but if we're at decolonized education, we cannot just change the content of education. We have to change the term and the vision and the goal of what we do with education. What Europe experienced is basically modernity, not coloniality, or if experience coloniality is a different way of experience coloniality that we have to kind of analyze. But for Charles H., modernity is what we saw. So what the problem now here is how to demodernize. Not to become postmodern or just postmodern, but the question is demodernize in the sense of we don't want to be, it's not like Latour said, we have never been modern, but the discourse is there, and the question is, well, we don't like to kind of go with the promises of what is called modernity. So I think that the book is an event. It's an event that is not just finished when you kind of ended looking at the pages. The generation of conversation in Abu Dhabi, the kind of in Venice that was just part of it, it's a kind of generate so many kind of conversation, but those conversations are motivated, and I think that I propel what is attractive, what is appealing, is precisely this kind of shifting in the way we talk about things. And that for me is one of the signs. So the other thing is very important for me about the book is the conversation.
One short article is especially that struck me. It was the short article called Residency in Exile, and how you talk about leaving Palestine and also coming to Stockholm for the first time where you had a camp, but also what it meant to bring the practice of bringing people together to think and reflect and creating a space that is what's not so much planned, but was very much what happened when all these people came together and what happened when you reflect together, and the space that is made and how that shift in every context. And I think that is so interesting, and also how I came into contact with both of you. With Sandi, with the living room, and how that project have revolved around bringing people together and hosting them, and how that situation and the learning experience shift depending on where it takes place and who is there. And to be part of all those different experiences and be able to reflect on them in retrospect has been very interesting for me to engage with. So what I'm trying to get at is what I think was the interesting part of this article, to have a practice in exile, to always have this with you and recreate it with a different group all the time, is something that I think was most precious to me in this book. And I have so much more to engage with in your many years of practice that I just want to share these reflections with you all.
There's so many contexts where I've asked myself, how is it to be practicing architecture? And when there's so many other social, valuable, and important things that I have to do parallel with practicing architecture. And architecture, in a sense, gives you the freedom to be able to mobilize changes, especially in a fast-growing economy like Ethiopia, and also where lots of young people are struggling to make space. I came back with the certainty that practice is not just one. You can theorize, you can make your own conclusions, you can make knowledge and practice to be in context. And you helped me so much. And this book for me is something that I always wanted to see, because it's something of the other. It's not something that we always see. It is very simple, and I like the simplicity of it. It's just in a way telling just some projects, and very authentic for me.
Birds do not need visas. But then the question, the very important question that you come back several times in the book, like, do we have to feel at home? Or what constitutes this home? And do we have to have a passport, a nationality, or a citizenship to feel at home, or feel, let's say, not miserable and not rejected? We discussed the university today and the difficulty of doing anything with the university. And personally, I abandoned the university as a project, I can tell. I don't think it's possible to decolonize the university. As Kieran said, it's not possible to decolonize the state. It's not possible. So it's better to start building something around and beyond. And that's why things like this, a book like this, or all these projects that you've been doing for more than a decade, this is, for me, constitutes a space of knowledge production today. It's much, much better and much easier to decolonize or stay is decolonial's way of thinking, and mode of thinking, than in any university that is bound to either tame you or somehow make you, correspond to certain rules, or hijack the things that you come up with and then reuse them in some neoliberal way.